Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited that you're here. We know that time is limited and you chose to join us today. So thank you so much. I am Mel Myers. I'm a financial advisor here at InfiniTALKS. I wanted to let you all know that this meeting is being recorded and we are going to be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I would like to introduce our guest speaker today. Her name is Pui, and she comes from Transamerica, one of our great partners at Transamerica. And she has close to 25 years of experience in the industry, but specifically with Social Security. And Social Security is such an important topic. There are so many questions around Social Security. So we wanted to make sure that we brought in somebody different. Last year, I did the Social Security presentation, but with her wealth of knowledge and years of experience, we wanted to bring in our partner from Transamerica. So again, Pui, thank you so much for being with us today. I will let you get started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk about a topic that some people might find boring. Some people might find like, oh gosh, is it going to really affect me? And then what we've found so far, I know with working with so many of the InfiniTALKS advisors, is knowing how important this topic is right now for your financial future, and especially right now. And that's what I'm here to do today, is to help our clients make better decisions, especially when it comes surrounding Social Security. And why is it with Social Security? It's because so many people not only receive this benefit, right? They're depending on this benefit, but also this benefit has been around for these folks, for you, for us, for a long, long time. And we hope that it continues for a long, long time. And that's what we're going to talk about today, that not only is a benefit that is important to consider today, but what is the longevity, the solvency of Social Security. And the reason I bring that up is because typically I do this presentation. I've done this presentation time and time again. And I will tell you, this is the first year where I actually have changed my agenda a little bit. And so what I mean by changing my agenda is I think there's more and more questions surrounding, will Social Security be there for me, right? So what I want to do is address that later on, after we make sure that we get after we make sure that we understand the basics of Social Security. And if you look at why Social Security is so important, it is, as we mentioned, not only there's so many people taking Social Security, going to take Social Security, but really it's how many people depend on Social Security as a component, as a leg of their financial security, right? So if you see here, for very low income earners, it makes up a much larger portion of their retirement income. For those that are median earners, $80,000 in earnings, around that area, it makes up about a third of your retirement benefits. And for those that are high income earners, what we consider high income earners, $160,000 or more, it makes up about 22% of your income. So not only is it something that we depend on, but it does make up a large portion of your retirement assets. So what I want to do today is, through our brief agenda, we're just going to talk about Social Security, go through the basics, talk about what it means to you. I switched around and we're going to answer some common questions, especially right now, as there is a lot of news, uncertainty, just really consternation around Social Security. We want to make sure that we address that. And then I want to make sure that everybody understands different claiming strategies that you have as well available to you. At the end of this, in doing this for so long, I want to make sure to save time to take any questions that anybody is comfortable with, might have anything that comes up. Please ask that, as we will make sure to have plenty of time for that. As a partner to the InfiniTALKS office here, you can use me as a resource. So if it's not something that you're comfortable with asking online, please know that they can reach out to me and we'll make sure to get an answer to you as well. So with that, let's get started with Social Security, right? Let's talk about something fun. Number one, I think the basics of Social Security are very important, just so that as we go through this, you understand what we're talking about. And let's just talk about, how are your benefits determined, right? What are the basic concepts around here? And there's really three time frames, which I think are important, that you can collect Social Security benefits. Very simple. You can collect your full benefit at your full retirement age. You can collect a reduced benefit as early as age 62, and this becomes a permanent reduction, right? So anytime you collect a benefit that is before your full retirement age, so from 62 to your full retirement age, that is going to be a reduction in your Social Security benefit. Or you can collect a benefit, what we call the delayed retirement credit. You can wait and delay to collect your Social Security benefit all the way up to age 70. And now we will talk about that in a little bit with regards to how that can work within your financial plan. So again, what does full retirement age, what does FRA mean? You're going to see a lot of these abbreviations. If you have ever read anything on the Social Security website, if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of reading articles on Social Security, you know that it's almost a different language. But really, all you need to know is full retirement age, FRA, is at the age at which you get to collect 100% of your Social Security benefit. And PIA, that's primary insurance amount, is just what is that 100% of your Social Security benefit. So how do they determine that, though? I think this is really important. This is where people get tripped up. So in order to be eligible for Social Security, you need 40 credits, okay? So you can earn, one credit is $1,810 right now. $1,810 amounts to one credit. You can earn 4 credits a year. So essentially you need about 10 working years to be eligible for Social Security. The thing to understand is credits only determine eligibility. I think a lot of people mistake this of, well, I have 50 credits, I have 60 credits, I have 70 credits. It doesn't matter. I liken this to call it a disco dance club, right? If you're waiting in line and you're waiting in line to get into the party of Social Security and you have 39 credits, I'm sorry, stand aside, go get another credit. If you have 60 credits, you have 70 credits, you don't get a VIP room, but you do get to enter. I think this is really important because a question that we get a lot in the financial services industry is, well, can I retire early? Should I retire early? Should my spouse retire early? And one of the very first things that we should take a look at is, well, what does your Social Security benefit look like? If you just need 1 more credit or 2 more credits in order to be eligible for Social Security for an income that not only is inflation adjusted, that lasts for your lifetime, and that you can pass on a beneficial amount, it might make sense to put up with that jerk boss for 1 more year, right? So that's really what we want to determine when it comes to looking at your Social Security benefits. And understanding also how those benefits are determined, meaning what is your particular individual number. Now, everybody here has probably seen, if you remember, I still remember getting the Social Security or your Social Security statement in the mail. We no longer get it in the mail. It's ssa.gov/my statement. Don't worry about writing that down. We'll make sure to have that in the end. And if anybody wants some materials, we'll be able to provide that as well. But now you go to your My Statements page and you're able to look and print out your Social Security information. And if you remember that statement, what it looks like is you'll have your full retirement age number, you'll have your reduced number, you'll have your delayed retirement credit number. And then typically on the back page, you're going to just have years where it has the year and it has all of these earnings. What are these earnings? Well, those are the earnings. Those are the Social Security earnings that you had for that year. And what does that mean? That's your primary insurance amount. And what your primary insurance amount, it is based off the highest 35 years of your work history, indexed and averaged. So what does that mean? It means that, for example, this year, the max cap on Social Security is $186,000. So what that means is if you earn anything over that max, you're not taxed on Social Security benefits. FICA doesn't take anything out. Anything below that, then that's what you get taxed for Social Security. That is important because in order to get the max Social Security benefit, you have to hit that max cap for the last 35 years. That's how you come up with your max Social Security benefit. And there's actually a formula, which we don't have to get into. If anybody is interested, I can talk about it, but there's a formula that determines that max cap, right? So every year, again, that max cap increases. I think last year was something around 174,000. The year before that was 162,000. So every year that cap gets increased. And remember when I talk about this cap, because it's going to come into play when we talk about different strategy or different things that can happen in regards to changes with Social Security. So again, let's go back to this. So they take their highest 35 years. So the years that you were maybe bagging groceries, to the year that you just started at that new job, to the year that you've become, you're now an engineer and you've been working for 30, or 25, 30 years, they're taking all of those years and they're indexing it. What does indexing mean? That just means that what was the max cap of Social Security that year, making sure that they're giving you the credit of what proportion of that income was it to that max cap. Again, a little bit confusing, but the basic point of this is that every year, unless you hit the max cap every year, it's very hard to get to the full maximum Social Security benefit. The other very important part about understanding this highest 35 years is, again, think about it this way of, can I retire early? Should I retire early? What happens when you have zeros in an average? So let's say that they take the highest 35 years, but you have 5 years left and you don't know if you want to retire or not. And you're saying, well, should I or shouldn't I? Well, again, if you have zeros in those last 5 years, those zeros, what do they do to an average? Right? Zeros decimate an average, really take down an average. So that can really affect your Social Security benefit. That can take it down. So again, it might make sense to work longer. I also get the opposite end of that, where I have clients that actually work not only 35 years, but they work 40 years, maybe even 45 years. And they ask me how that affects it. And again, the beauty of that is they're taking the highest 35 years. So you're able to slough off those years that maybe, like me, you were, again, making smoothies or whatever it might be. Those years fall off and your higher income earner years get tacked on. And that's how you determine your benefit. And again, understand that this benefit only applies to you, meaning they're not combining a husband and spouse work benefit or anything, that these are your individual benefits. And that's why they call it primary insurance amount. Again, any questions, and we can answer that after the presentation here. So let's talk about full retirement age. What does that mean? Again, this is just when you get to collect 100% of your benefit. And as you can see here, if you were born from 1943 to 1954, which in 2024, this is when people attain to this age, that is your full retirement age. What happened after this, and this was actually happened in the 1980s under Reagan, when they thought that Social Security was actually going to go completely insolvent. They did not have a trust fund. I mean, it was getting very, very close, very dire. And so what did they end up doing? They ended up increasing Social Security age. And how they did that was they increased it they increased it 2 months for every year you were born after 1955. So you have 1955, after 1954. So in 1955, your full retirement age is 66 and 2 months, 1956, 66 and 4 months, 1957, 66 and 6 months. You get the idea, all the way up to age 67, right? So now, since 1960, let me tell you that this has not been adjusted whatsoever. It has not been adjusted for longevity. This was, I told you, as I mentioned, this was a change that was implemented in the 80s. And since the 80s, it has not been touched yet. So again, keep that in mind as we talk about things, the changes that can happen. So again, regardless of what year you're born after 1960, right now, your full retirement age is age 67. You reach that age, you get to collect 100% of your benefit. If you want to, again, just getting an idea of what the average benefits might be, you can see that the average for a retired worker is $1,976. For average for a couple is $3,089. The maximum in full retirement age in 2025 is $4,100 or $4,018. You can see these are not small numbers, and this is why it is so important. And again, we'll talk about this maximum at age 70 is $5,108. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now let's talk about the second option, right? Well, what happens if I want to file this early? I heard that it's 62, I want to take my benefit. Understand that when you take your benefit, if you take it early, you have 12 months, which we'll talk about in a minute, and that becomes a permanent reduction. A lot of folks that I've run into think sometimes, well, I could take it at 62 and then I'll go take my 66 number and then I'll take my 70 number. This is now a selection that you are making for the rest of your life, right? So this is also why it's important. But what happens here, if your full retirement age is 66 and you decide to take it as early as age 62, you'll see here that you get a 25% reduction. Again, that increases, as you see here, it's not a standard increase of 1% or 2%. If you're 66 and 2 months, it's 26%, 66 and 4 months, yes, 27%, but all of a sudden 66 and 6 months, 27.5. You see, as you get closer, the percentages change. But if you're 67, again, that reduction off of your Social Security benefit is a 30% permanent reduction that you take with your benefit. Something to keep in mind as well that people don't understand is working. This is a big question that I get all the time is, can I work and continue to collect Social Security benefits? I work with a lot of advisors, and the key here is understanding why we are doing that. Because if you're going to collect a Social Security benefit early and work, it can be very detrimental. And what do I mean by that? It means that if you are earning anything over $23,400 per year, that anything over that, they're subject to an income limit. Like they call it a withholdings. And so what does that mean? That for every $2 of earnings that you have above that 23,400, they're going to withhold $1 of benefit. So you could actually go ahead and say, you know what, I'm so scared, I want to collect the benefit, I'm going to continue to work. And you can work and still not be able to collect any benefit because you earn so much money. So this is something you want to consider as we are planning on how to best put a retirement plan together for you. Because again, it might not make sense. And I always call it I hope this joke still lands, but I watch a lot of NBA basketball in my house, but I call it, it's Charles Barkley. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. It's a terrible idea. It's terrible, number one, because you're going to get taxed on it. It's terrible, number two, because you're most likely going to get withholdings on it. And it's terrible, number three, is because you don't get that money back. It's like it's not like, oh, they withhold it and they're going to give it back to me. No, it just gets included. You get calculated as part of your Social Security benefit, but it's not any pot of money that you get back. So I just think that working and collecting a Social Security benefit, if the earned income is over $23,400, is not a very good idea. And we really want to have a conversation of why you might be considering that. Understand though that that income limit does increase once you hit your full retirement year. So once you hit your year, now instead of for every $2 of earnings, you get $1 withheld, it's now for every $3 of earnings, you get $1 withheld. And again, that increase goes up to $62,160 per year. Again, anything over that gets that 3-to-1 withholdings. And this is the key part though. Understand that once you reach full retirement age and you want to continue to work, your high income, low income, it doesn't matter. It is unlimited. You can make $50,000, you can make $500,000, and there's no longer any restrictions that apply to that. And another thing to keep in mind is, again, every year that you work, you are getting more 35 years, right, into that calculation of Social Security. So you can actually continue to bump up that Social Security benefit. So if you did, though, if you're like, oh gosh, I know a couple of people that actually started to work, or I know people that took their benefit early and now are regretting it, there's a couple things that you can do. We call them repair strategies. And the first thing you can do is you have 12 months to do what they call a payback. And this doesn't, let's say that you took your Social Security benefit and you decided 11 months in, gosh, this was a bad idea. My situation changed. What can I do? You can do this one time. You can file for a, I just completely lost my train of thought of what the name is called. But basically, you're filing to say, I want to stop my benefits and start it over again. So this is called the payback. And what you have to do is you have to pay back all of the Social Security benefits that you took for that year or that amount of time. You have to pay it back in one check, and then you're able to then stop your benefit and start it whenever you want again. The stop and start is a little bit different. I know that sounds confusing, but the stop and start is basically, you can, let's say that you pass that 1 year and now you're at age 62, but you've already taken that reduction. Now you're age 63 and you said, oh gosh, I passed the 1 year. What do? I'm 63 and a half. You can stop taking that benefit. You can then start it back up again. Let's call it at the age of 70, and they will give you credits for that. Now, again, that permanent reduction does happen. Nothing happens with that permanent reduction. So no matter what, you're going to continue to get that reduction. But because you let your Social Security benefit accrue more, you could bump up that benefit. So I think the main part of this is to understand that it is an important decision, and it's a decision that you get to make the mistake once. So we really want to make sure that we do it right. The other side of this is taking the third option, which is very interesting. The third option is really where you can do what they called a delayed retirement credit. So what they allow you to do is, from your full retirement age, you can decide, you know what, I'm working everything is going well. I don't plan to retire anytime soon, so I don't want to take it yet. What do? I'm going to give my longevity, right? I'm going to give my longevity credits away to Social Security, and they're going to give me an 8% credit for that. And that 8% credit will go all the way up to age 70. Let me tell you this, after age 70, there is 0.0 reason to continue to wait to take your Social Security benefit. You can take it and go give it away. You can take it and buy a life insurance policy to fund your nonprofit, whatever it is, but whatever you need to do, take your benefit at age 70, because you're not getting anything more than just giving away, again, your longevity, right? Giving away your longevity to Social Security. So let's talk about this 8% credit real quick. Understand that the 8% is a simple interest, okay? And understand that you don't have to wait the full year. You can wait a year and a half, you can wait 3 years, you can wait 4 years. So there is definite flexibility, and that's why it makes it nice. It makes it where you can, with your advisor here at InfiniTALKS, you guys can talk about how to best use that possibly as a bridge, how in markets like this, for example, when we have volatility, does it make sense because we're planning to work another year? Gosh, where else can we get 8%? Do we think we're going to get 8% out of the S&P 500 right now? So this is something that you can actually do and get that delayed retirement credit. It also works out when we talk in a little bit here of helping your spouse, and that's going to come into when we talk about strategies. So what do? How do we decide when to collect, right? Like when you just look at the numbers, you're saying, gosh, from delaying from age 62 to all the way to age 7, or to all the way to age 70, that's about a 77% increase in monthly payments. And again, let's talk about why Social Security is so important, right? It's income that for the rest of your life doesn't go away, income that regardless of pandemics and financial crises and whatever we may be facing has never gone down, an income that you can actually pass on to your certain beneficiaries, be it a spouse or children under the age of 18. So those are things that we really want to consider when it comes down to Social Security. It's like that's a big increase in number, right? But I always tell folks there's so much to consider with Social Security. It's your health. Are you married? Are you divorced? How many years do you have in the workforce? How many years do you continue to have in the workforce? What does your retirement assets look like? It's not only qualified assets, but it's non-qualified assets. How are we taking that out in terms of a taxable situation? What are we doing in terms of increasing our taxes when we take Social Security? So there's a lot of questions. But if you were to come down and you're saying, okay, well, Pui, I just need to know, gosh, just let me know when I should collect this benefit, right? Like what does it really come down to? Well, it comes down to longevity. Right? Longevity is the big key of this, is if you can tell me what I call your milk carton expiration date, I can tell you exactly when you should take Social Security. But the reality is people are just living longer, right? If you look here, 1 out of 3 65-year-olds will live until at least 90. 1 out of 7. So this is the weird part. Think about this. The longer you live, the longer you're expected to live. So 1 out of 7 65-year-olds will live at least until age 95. And then if you look, a 65-year-old married couple has at least a 50-50 chance that one of them will live beyond age 90. So flip a coin and see who's going to live, right? So that's the longevity really comes into play. But I would say this, if you wanted a simple graph, don't overthink this. I want you to think about 78 and 81. Okay, just think about those two ages right now. So if you think that you can live past the age of 78, you think 78, you know what, I still have, gosh, I have grandkids, I'm traveling, I'm jet skiing, 78 is the new 30, then understand that if you take your benefit, then you should wait till full retirement age, till age 66 to take your benefit, right? If you then think that you can live till age 81, right, you're saying, oh yeah, 81, my parents lived till 100, whatever, then that's when you should wait till 70 to collect your benefit. So these are just hypothetical break-even ages. They don't take into account putting the money into the market, getting a high-yielding savings account. None of that. It's just taking what we know today of what the benefit's going to be, your longevity. But I like people to think about those ages and what it means to them, and really take into account what your family history is when deciding when to collect. So this is the key one, is how do I use my spousal benefits? Again, I mentioned this a couple times. And so we're going to go through a couple scenarios. I just want people, I'll read this just so that it becomes clear to people. But if you file for a spousal benefit at your full retirement age, your spousal benefit will be 50% of your spouse's primary insurance amount. Okay. So again, You have to have full retirement age to get that 50%. If you decide to file earlier, right, you can file at age 62 because you can see that you must be 62 or older to qualify. But if you do that, you are going to get a reduction. So instead of 50% of your spouse's primary insurance amount, you're only going to get close to 35%. You cannot collect benefits on your current spouse's record until he or she has filed for their own benefit. This is another one that people get tripped up on, is just knowing they have to file. They have to initiate that benefit before you can collect on their benefit. And again, like I said, the amount will be reduced if taken before full retirement age, but won't increase if delayed. Meaning, as a spouse, you don't get the benefit. If you're taking a spousal benefit, you don't get the benefit of getting those delayed retirement credits. And this will make a little bit more sense when we go through some scenarios here. This is really interesting as well. These rules also apply for divorced spouses' benefits. So as long as you were married and the marriage lasted at least 10 years, the spouse or the ex-spouse, let's say that you're going to take on that benefit, that you're going to file for a spousal benefit, as long as you are unmarried, doesn't matter if they're married or not, you're collecting on their benefit, you can collect on your benefit in the form and fashion that we are talking about here today. So that is something, if you have questions around that, we can talk about that as well. So I think it makes sense to just kind of go through a case study so that you can understand how this works. Let's talk about Frank and Ellen. Right. Let's say traditional situation now. Frank is married to Ellen. He's a high wage earner. His full retirement age is age 66. Ellen is married to Frank. She was a homemaker, lower wage earner. Her full retirement age is 66. There's a strategy called claim now. And essentially what this means is they both want their benefits now. They waited till full retirement age so they can get 100% of their benefits. But what does that look like? So again, in order for Ellen to be able to claim on Frank's benefit, Frank has to claim his benefit, right? So Frank at age 66 claims $2,600. Because Frank has initiated that benefit, has claimed it, Ellen, instead of collecting her own benefit, pardon me, at only $600, she is now able to collect half of Frank's benefit of $1,300. They go around, they live a fantastic, happy life. They continue to get their Social Security benefit. And then when Frank passes, you see here that Frank passes his benefit onto Ellen. She doesn't get both benefits. So she just gets the higher of. So here she moves up to $2,600, and that's called the claim now strategy. Claim later. So what does this? This is meaning that if you have a situation, I've seen this a lot of times when it's not going to be in this strategy, but if there's a big age difference, or maybe there was there wasn't enough long-term care insurance, we didn't have enough life insurance, we're trying to take care and maximize the survivor. How can we do that? So in this scenario, Frank goes ahead and he delays his retirement, right? He decides, I want to get those 8% credits. I want to maximize my amount at age 70. So Ellen goes ahead and she has to file on her own benefit. Why? Because Frank hasn't filed, right? So she doesn't have any opportunity to get on that benefit. However, and this is the key, once Frank hits 70 and decides to file, now we opened up that benefit for Ellen. So now she switches from the $600 benefit to the $1,300 benefit, half of his, right? They move along. There's that break-even point of age 86. And once Frank passes away, this is a great way to take the benefit all the way up to $3,400 for her. And again, even from our last slide, as you can see, I think if I remember correctly, our last slide, that benefit was $2,600. And we were able to get a much bigger number for Ellen in that strategy. And so, again, this is just showing you in a graphical representation of what those bigger dollar amounts can mean, right? Just depending on the longevity of if they both collect at age 62, you're able to see, look at when they collect at age 62. Let's see here, right? It's $982,000. Versus when they both collect at age 70, assuming some longevity there, you're looking at, close to $270,000 of income. So again, big numbers that we're talking about. I think that that's what people have to realize about Social Security. It's no longer just, not that it ever was, but it is a significant part of a retirement plan, and it can be. So before we get into common questions, I think this is important. I'm getting so much more of these questions. So we want to make sure, if this is a situation that you've encountered, if you have a friend or family member, if you have a parent that is in the situation, I think the survivor benefit is something that people need to be a little bit more aware of for a couple different reasons. So a surviving spouse can receive up to 100% of the deceased spouse's benefit. Like we showed, they no longer get their benefit, but they can get Frank's benefit, right? As we talked about. Except in the case of an accident, a couple must have been married at least 9 months at the time of death. A survivor may be able to get full retirement benefits and must be at least age 60 for reduced benefit. So what does that mean? That just means that unlike everything else, remember we talked about everything else was based off of this age 62. With survivor benefit, it's actually based off of age 60. So you're eligible for this benefit at age 60. Here's the thing, love comes at a cost. I tell people this all the time. Benefit is not available if surviving spouse remarries before the age of 60. So if you have a very large survivor benefit and you end up meeting a nice lady, you might want to see what her benefit looks like first before you get married, because if it might make sense. Again, this might be a decision. Times are tough, you know what I mean? Like every dollar counts. So you want to make sure that you understand that getting remarried before the age of 60 will eliminate that survivor benefit. Divorced spouses can claim a survivor benefit on an ex-spouse's record. Again, same thing as we talked about on just the regular benefit, if the marriage lasted at least 10 years. And remember, when surviving spouses move up to claim a deceased spouse's benefit, they do not keep their original benefit. So does that make sense? When a surviving spouse moves up to claim a deceased spouse's benefit, they do not keep their original benefit. Like we said, you just get the larger of. Here's the biggest thing that I gets missed in survivor benefits is understanding that, think about them as two separate benefits, your benefit and a survivor benefit, that work kind of opposite or independent of each other. So this is big. You can collect a benefit at age 60. You're going to get a reduction in that survivor benefit, but you can let your benefit continue to grow. So you can continue to grow. You don't take a reduction. You can get those 8% delayed retirement credits. I think that's important to understand. So we see that a lot. However, if you are taking it at age 60, also understand that you are still subject to that earnings limit that we talked about. So it could be a scenario where even though you could take the benefit, you're not going to, because you're going to be subject to that earnings. Another thing that comes into play a lot now is, as folks are having kids older and older, that the kids are able to collect survivor benefits as well, as long as they are 18 and under and still in high school. So they're able to collect on a family benefit. And so, this is also something that you just want to be able to consider if you know of anybody and maybe maybe something happened. We want to make sure that the kids are taken care of. This is something that you have a benefit available to them. So they're able to get quite a high benefit if there was a death there. A thing that I'll bring up as well, just because it just came up recently, that kids can also collect a benefit. Like when you're 60, you don't even have to die yet. So as long as you're 62, if you're 62 and your kids are still in high school, it might make sense to collect that benefit at 62, because then your kids can collect a benefit as well. So those are just small little things that come up with Social Security. So that's why it's a very individual conversation. There's not a blanket statement when it comes to Social Security of, oh, you should do this, you should collect, everybody should wait till full retirement age, everybody should get a delayed retirement credit. As you can see in those situations, not every situation is individual and different. Tax considerations. This is going to come up in a minute when we talk about the solvency issue. So I want to bring this up. This is where understanding what provisional taxes mean. So this is basically in Social Security right now, of your Social Security benefit, you have a 15% free amount. That means that 15% does not get taxed at all. The other 85%, they go and they do this provisional test on it, which basically means they take your earned combined income, right? they add 50% of your Social Security benefit, and then they decide, okay, what amount of your benefit will be taxed at ordinary income. So let's go through this real quick. Let's just say that you're an individual. Let's just make it easy. And your tax return and your combined income, this is what they call provisional income, is between $25,000 and $34,000. That means that 50% of your benefit may be taxable. That just means that 50% of your benefit is taxed at your ordinary income rate, and the other 50% is not taxed, right? Now, let's say that, again, these thresholds are very low, so I'm just going to assume that most people are going to hit this threshold anyways, because again, it's your income plus 50% of your Social Security income is more than $34,000. That means that 85% of that benefit is taxable, with that 15% free. So that's what we mean by taxes. Sometimes people see this as like, oh gosh, we have an 85% tax on benefits, and that's not the case. But I'm going to come back to this one in a little bit when we talk about some solvency issues. So the main thing, and this is what I wanted to get to, is this main question is, will Social Security be there for me? This is the number one question that I get all the time. And listen, there are challenges. Everybody knows the challenges. We are living longer, and the ratio of workers is getting smaller and smaller, meaning that for every one beneficiary, the amount of workers paying into the system is dwindling as we speak. So there's definitely strains on the system. I'm sure, especially right now, you're hearing a lot of news of what is the viability of Social Security with the Social Security Trust Fund. Understand that Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system, meaning that the FICA taxes that are taken go into the Social Security Trust Fund. So long as there are workers in the United States, that there is going to continue to be that pay-as-you-go system. When we talk about the Social Security Trust Fund being depleted, that means that fund that we were overpaying into, that we had a excess into, is continuing to go down. So once that gets depleted, again, instead of getting 100% of your benefit, you're getting 79% of your benefit. So the Social Security Trust Fund, what they do is they project the viability of Social Security for the next 30, 50 years. And the recent projection had it coming in at, we are able to pay full benefits up until 2033, right? After that, you will, if nothing changes, Congress can't get it together, then the reserves will be able to cover it. And then now you're only able to pay 80% or 79% of the benefits, right? So why is this important? It's understanding that, yes, there are definitely strains to the system, but there's a lot of changes that can happen too. And let's just talk about this. And then I want to get into a couple things that might be on your mind here. So the number one thing is the increase of the Social Security payroll tax, so that FICA tax. I think the rate that they came up with is, if we increase it by 50 basis points, so going from the 6.2 to 6.7, right? That would really help with the longevity, or with the trust fund, with making sure that trust fund still stays intact. This is a big one. This is called eliminating the max cap. So you can eliminate or increase the wage base limit. So remember when I talked about this year was $186,000. So it's just like Medicare. So there's already precedent for this thing. So I think that this is going to get some legs, instead of saying that, okay, once you hit $186,000, you're no longer taxed for Social Security. They'll treat it like Medicare and say it doesn't matter. You can be taxed up to $250. It doesn't matter if you make $250, $500, $800. You're going to get taxed all the way through. I think that's going to be. I don't think it's going to work like that. I think there's going to be you get up to 186. There's going to be a gap, and then the taxation starts again. I think that's what's gaining the most steam, because Social Security is already means tested. So that makes it difficult for a lot of wealthy clients to stomach, because again, the wealthier clients are the ones that are paying the most into the system, but not necessarily getting the effectual amount out of it. So, but that is something that is definitely a huge front runner. And again, this is one that people say is really easy to do, is just increase full retirement age. That's everybody thinks it's a no-brainer. There's just a lot of political potential issues around just simply saying we're going to increase full retirement age. You can decrease future retirement benefits. I do not fully believe at all that, don't forget, Social Security is the most politically charged. It wasn't supposed to be a political football. It has become a political football. So it's become very, very charged in that sense. So I do not think that you're not going to get a reduction for anybody within 10 years of taking Social Security benefits. But the younger generations, I think the expectation there is, yes, their benefits, they're most likely going to have their retirement age is not going to be 67 anymore, and the benefits could be a lot smaller. Reduction of future cost of living adjustments. They can go to something, instead of just CPIW, the cost of living of urban wages, they can go to what they call chain CPI. So that just means that, for example, you could say, well, the cost of living, a gallon of milk right now is $4, but instead of having to buy milk, you could just have water, right? So water is a lot less than milk. And so your cost of living isn't really going to be that expensive. So it's just a way to manipulate the COLA adjustments. So I can see that happening, and think that would really impact retirees that are really dependent on this benefit. And here's the interesting thing. Again, we had to get our slides approved in 2024. These are all knowing what was going to happen in 2025. What happened in the end of 2024 was the Social Security Fairness Act, where they actually had the repeal of the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. So for those that don't know what that was, it was just for anybody that was a government, different branches of government have this, but a government worker that didn't pay into Social Security, or possibly a teacher that had a para or a teacher's pension plan that didn't pay into Social Security, that you would have this discount that would happen on your benefit, or you wouldn't get your benefit at all. And they eliminated that with the Social Security Fairness Act. So what that meant was, let's say that you were husband and wife, and the wife was a teacher, and being a teacher, she decided, gosh, I'm subject to this windfall elimination provision. I'm not going to get to collect anything on my spousal benefit. So she just never collected anything on her spousal benefit. Well, now, because of the Social Security Fairness Act, there actually might be something that she could collect. So if you fall into this situation at all, if you know, again, friends, family members, workers that fall into this situation, you definitely, sorry, is that, you see my battery? I'll talk fast, everybody. That you definitely want to be aware of this, that the payments should have, if you were a government worker that was subject to government pension offset or windfall elimination provision, and you have not received a check, that's something that you definitely want to check into, because we've already been hearing that a lot of people have been receiving their check. It was back paid until 2024. So what that means is, it doesn't matter if you didn't get paid all those other years. In 2024, they'll pay you in a lump sum of what you didn't get because of this provision, that now with the Fairness Act, they will pay you. So that's moving forward as well. So for those, again, I would just say, for those that hadn't filed in the past because you just assumed you weren't going to get anything, or for those that, you worked 10 years in the private sector and then you went to go do government work for the next 40 years, but you figured, gosh, those 10 years meant nothing because my elimination provision is going to make it so that I'm not even going to get any money on it. You want to make sure to go back and revisit this, because that could be dollars on the table that you're losing there. So what that brings us to is solvency, right? The solvency is really the biggest issue here. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to cover this in about 4 minutes so that I can take questions and we can go through this a little bit more if you want. But obviously this is great for folks, because for the folks that, they're getting more money from Social Security, but the problem is now that it puts more strain on Social Security, right? It puts the strain on the reserves. So those projections that we talked about are projections that before the Social Security Fairness Act has happened. The other thing that is going to be possibly a strain to the system is it's past the Senate right now, where they're going to, remember the taxes that we talked about, that the Senate has passed so far, that they're going to possibly eliminate Social Security, getting your Social Security benefits tax, which on the front end, you're like, okay, that's great. That'd be nice. You get more money spending in your pocket. But again, the money that was taxed on Social Security, actually, that was the money that went back into the Social Security Trust Fund. So all that money got taxed, got put it back into the Social Security Trust Fund. So again, you're putting a lot more strain on the system, more pressure on the system, and you're probably pulling forward those years that Social Security will run out. So instead of 2033, I think the latest projection I saw was 2028. We won't know for sure until the Social Security puts out their projections, and that happens in October. So we won't know for sure what their projection will be. But again, that's something to keep in mind, is these things seem great. But again, what Congress doesn't have in place right now is what's the plan for solvency, right? There is not one front running plan right now. There is not one senator, congressman that is willing to come out and put their neck on the line and say that we should reduce benefits or we should increase Social Security age. Like, that just hasn't happened. So we need a plan going forward with that. Thank you. The other thing that I think addressing that, so the Social Security Fairness Act, I addressed that. I addressed the solvency, and then a big thing is DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency, and what the impact has been on the Social Security Administration. I think a lot of folks, anecdotally, you will hear that there's been a lot of wait times. The idea of DOGE was to go in and, quite honestly, take a chainsaw in there and just start cutting, start eliminating positions, start getting everybody online as quick as possible. And I think that we've soon found that that is just not happening in the way that they thought it was going to happen, that what it's caused is just like anything. When you go in and you take a chainsaw to something that might need a whittling knife, you're going to have problems. And the first problems that start are going to be problems with customer service. So longer wait times, eliminating offices, those type of things. So what can you do to protect yourself? I would say two things that, just be aware of. I would recommend everybody to go on to socialsecurity.gov, and make sure to print out your Social Security statement. Just have a physical record of your Social Security statement. Number two, I think you have to be a lot more diligent now. And as for you, for your parents, you have grandparents out there, for anybody that's older, I think that this could lead to a lot more fraud, just because with the Department of Government Efficiency, what they're trying to do too is you have to verify your identity. You have to verify that you are who you say you are, right? But by logging in, by getting your statement, by having your Social Security benefit linked to a bank account, that's one way they're saying verification. But I think that what it's going to cause is it could cause a lot more scams, right? A lot more people calling your mom or dad and saying, oh, hey, you're not going to get your Social Security benefit unless you verify it. Give me your Social Security number, we'll verify you. And the next thing you know, they've cleaned out their bank account. So I just think that we have to be a lot more diligent now with the reductions that happened in staff and with the movement to technology. I think it's just going to breed a lot more bad actors, and just make sure to protect yourself out there. So with that, I wanted to make sure to leave enough time for questions. I thank you for your time. I hope we've covered everything. Oh, a couple things that I wanted to make sure that we do have, for those that have attended the presentation here today, I will make sure to get this out to Mel and get it out to Lauren. Of our Social Security planning workbook is great. We actually won some awards for our workbook and our facts at a glance, and I'll make sure we can get that in a physical copy, or we can get that emailed out to anybody there as well. Anybody out there as well. All right, I will take questions. Maybe I can go and see them. Sorry, I'm going to do this while I go try to see everybody. Okay, questions.
Okay, so I think if we can, Lauren, can we make the ability to have people raise their hands so we can have them unmute to ask questions? And while we are getting that set up, don't be shy. Everyone typically likes to be shy. Don't be shy. It's okay to ask a question. Lauren, it looks like we do have somebody. Thank you for being brave and not being shy.
I think they're on mute still. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Very good information. Thank you very much. As it relates to the possibility of working still and that earned income limits, does that include other income, just like passive interest income?
Nope, that's just earned income.
That's truly working W-2 type stuff, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. I'm relieved.
And if you have real estate, just understand it's how you put that rental income on your taxes. So I think it's online. If you put it on line C, again, I can't remember this exactly, but as long as it's a passive real estate income, you're fine. If you become an active real estate investor, if you put that on as active real estate investor, then that would be considered as part of your earned income for that calculation.
Okay, anybody else want, oh, okay, Bill?
Yes, my question is the changes that you mentioned. I think I wrote down 6 of them. Do they necessarily have to do just one, or they can choose to do 3 and just do a mix? So an example is they would decide to increase the retirement age and increase the Social Security tax at the same time. Is that that be possible?
Well, I mean, the possibility is what would get through, right? Because again, Social Security it takes an act of Congress to change, and it would really be like, what would both parties, or, what the control looks like in the House and the Senate, and what type of, this is an issue that you can't filibuster. So you do need majority rule on this. So it's just a matter of really coming together, I think. So yes, to answer your question, Bill, yes, it could. It's just a matter of them, our representatives working together. But I think you're on the right track. It's not going to be one fix. It's not going to just be, let's just, tax it and then we're okay. I think that they need to solve this for the longer term, which is exactly what happened in the 80s with Reagan. They solved it for the longer term by doing all those things. They actually started taxing Social Security benefits there. And that's when they raised Social Security age. They were able to get that through at the time. As I mentioned, I think it is going to take a combination. I think the combination that is getting the most traction right now is that max cap traction I talked about, like getting up to that max cap, having a break, and then like if you make over $500,000, then you get taxed again on Social Security. So I think that's the way they can make it solvent. And then I think that there will be a component of increasing taxes, and I absolutely think that there is going to be a longevity component of it that's not going to affect anybody. That is, I think at that point they're going to make it like they did in the 80s, where you'd be 20 years out before it actually affects you. But yes, the folks, the kids right now that are 15, 20 years old, yeah, it's going to affect them.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Is there another hand? I see another hand right there. Oh, that was Bill. Okay. We have Malcolm.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I'm currently 64, and I'm actually going to be leaving my position here in about a month. My plan is not to draw my Social Security till I become 67. But if I have any additional earned income between now and then, is that going to damage my Social Security, or will it still go off the last information that I have that the Social Security sent me? In other words, they said you're going to make this much at 67.
Yeah, what it does is it just depends on how much you're going to earn. What I mean by that is what they take when they take that when they make those assumptions is they take your last W-2 and they pull that forward to your full retirement age. So they say, okay, if you made $100,000 and you're 64, we're going to pull that forward till you're 67 and assume that you're going to make that same 100,000. So if your income drops significantly, it would affect it. It would bring that income amount down, that retirement amount down, if you don't have the full 35 years. So if you already have the full 35 years, you're just continuing to work on your 35-year number. Like the 35-year number would actually benefit if you took your highest, if you got a bigger raise or something like that, because again, that 35 is just taking the highest 35. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think so, because I already have 35, so it should not come down then.
Yeah, we should not come down. No, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There's another hand that has a 2 on it. No? Okay, I think that was.
Yeah, I don't see any other hands raised. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We will be having a recording, and we will post that on our YouTube channel. We want to thank Pui so much for just sharing so much detailed information with us. Transamerica is a great partner. And if you guys have additional questions, like she said, we can definitely forward on any additional questions to her. And obviously reach out to your financial advisor for anything that's specific to you, any questions that you wrote down. Feel free to your next review or reach out to your specific advisor. We truly appreciate you spending today with us. and taking the time to learn more about Social Security. It's such an important topic. And again, Pui, thank you so much for today. Everyone, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.